Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 27 of the Heart for Excellence show. We continue our conversation with Clayton. But before we get back into our conversation, we're going to take a quick pause for a gratitude moment. So, man, we've been doing a lot of gratitude moments. So this one is just kind of coming straight out of my mind. I think that the thing that I'm really, really grateful for is health. You know, and it really kind of made me appreciate, as I heard your story, getting injured and getting... pushed out of the army because of your injuries. And, you know, I was in airborne units too. There was actually one time I had a bad jump, but I was able to walk it off. And I just feel so incredibly blessed that I have not sustained any injuries that have stayed with me. So thank you for reminding me how just blessed I am. And I will be definitely praying for your surgery.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, for me, it's great friends. And one specifically, Terry Weaver, because Terry Weaver actually connected kind of all of us together. And so I'm grateful for him. And we have a Vail Institute keynote tonight and get to see him. But
no pressure, Trevor. Trevor's going to be the MC, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, good friends that introduced us to other good friends. And Will Holder was that for us. And Will is friends with Terry. So Terry's in there, Will's in there. And because of those two guys, we're sitting here together today. So I'm grateful for Will and Terry. Thank you. Yeah. How about you, brother?
Well, just in the same vein as the last episode, thinking about my recent transition out of the military, I am extremely grateful for the family that I've been able to live with, and it's given me residence in their home, the Howarth family, that is an integral part of Church Project and super faithful family, and man, just loved me enough and are hospitable enough to give me a room in their house that I can stay in as I get back into the swing of civilian life and the real world and stuff. And so it's been just a great transition out for me.
How sweet. Relationships, man. Powerful.
Yeah. So simple, yet so sometimes difficult.
Well, good. So on this episode, I'm excited to hear your story of how do you go from that mindset of I'm a failure. I can't talk about it because that only makes me feel worse. But it's a truth. I might not want to acknowledge it, but I do have to live with it. So how do I get out of that? And then maybe how did the advance participate in getting free from that mindset? I'm a failure. I don't know if there's any great future for me, so I'll just scratch out what I can. To now, like, I've got a great future. So, Clayton, if you can share that with us.
I think it was a slow roast for me during the advance because we had 5 or 6 speakers over the 3 days that we were there, but there were so many similarities and so many commonalities with my past and my story that was coming out in every single speaker that was up there. And so, starting with Will, who is a very close friend of mine, who I met him under the circumstances of his divorce. That was how we met. It was in the midst of him and his first wife falling apart and in the dissolving of that. And then with Dane getting up there and praying and talking about his divorce from his first marriage, and then Merritt getting up and having so many things in common with me, just military-wise, but then also talking about his divorce and what happened during that. And then Terry getting up and admitting his divorce, and then Trevor, you getting up there, and you're coming from a place of divorce. And so I'm hearing all these different guys speak about the things that have happened in my life that, man, I remember like they were just yesterday, but I think that I had done a very good job of just stuffing it down and keeping it so far down in the pit of my heart that with all the other things that I could put on top of it, that'll keep it weighed down. There's no way it can get out and manifest itself into some terrible, terrible things. And so that was, unbeknownst to me, what I think I had been doing. And yes, God had circumvented so many things to heal and to mend and to bring the broken places back to wholeness again. But it wasn't until I started listening to all the things that these guys were sharing at the advance, and even things that were worse than what I had experienced, even though they were similar, I started to actually hear the words coming from these guys as they admitted what their coping mechanisms were, how they played a role into what had happened, taking ownership and responsibility for the way things played out in those relationships, and then what happened after that and where God led them from that. And so I think it had been a very, very long time that I had actually considered that I had done pretty much the exact same things that these guys had just been talking about and didn't even realize it until, like I said, we got through every single speaker and God was just, just weighing so heavy in my heart and soul of like, dude, like, do you hear yourself in each of these men? Wow. And I had to deal with that. Like I could not let that just slide. I had to deal with that. And God was so gracious to me to just bring those realizations and revelations up, but then give me an opportunity to confess it and then lay it down to the altar and say, okay, like I need to absolutely get rid of some of these things. And some of them were memories. Some of them were images. Some of them were just feelings that I still had, but because I had never, or not never, it had been such a long time that I had even like dug these things up. Those feelings were pretty much null and void. But as soon as they started resurrecting in the middle of the advance weekend, the feelings that associated with them then came all to the surface, and I was like, oh my God, I haven't felt this in 6 or 7 years. Wow. What is wrong with me? What is going on with me? Like, oh my goodness. And so God was just so good in unearthing those things, but then at the same time, not bringing the gavel down or the sledgehammer down of, you are such a worthless human being.
Judgment.
Such a
judgment.
Such a terrible person for, never have fully confessing or never fully dealing with this, and you left it just to sit and get buried, and that's unacceptable, Clayton. And now I'm gonna, let you suffer these consequences. And
because you deserve
eternally.
it.
Because you deserve, what you've done. And so
you're a no-go at your life, right?
Absolutely.
That's what they say at Ranger School.
Exactly. And so instead of that being the verdict, there was such a sweet, just a sweet whisper from the Lord of, hey, like, okay, you can let this go now. You can fully admit these things that you probably never did admit or never wanted to admit, but it's okay. It's okay now. Yeah. And I'm going to take it from you, and you're not going to have to deal with it anymore.
That's powerful right there. Wow. Right there. Wow. That's freedom.
And here, like when I saw Clayton, I thought, now Clayton, he's going to be like, well, look at the tongue, guys. I got to get going.
That is powerful, Clayton.
Yeah.
Freedom. It's amazing because the two of you, Merrick, Clayton, you guys are fighting for freedom for American citizens.
Yeah.
That's what you do in the Army, in the military. Yeah. And yet so many men are in captivity within their own souls until something happens to impact that where we go, man, I can have freedom in Christ.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we get it in a military perspective, in a kind of a combat type environment, but for whatever reason, at least for me, I did not make the connection that, hey, jackass, you can do the same thing in spiritual world.
It's amazing. So, okay, so you're at this point, you're at the advance. God is just kind of perking your ears up, listening to the different guys that were sharing their story. And then in your heart, you're sensing, man, I can surrender this without judgment or the gavel coming down, sentencing me. Mm-hmm. And so pick it up from that point.
Yeah, so there's that junction that you get to in the road where you're either going to do that or you're not.
Yeah.
The knowledge is there. The revelation is there. Yeah. God has spoken. And what you do with it at that point is now up to you. And so you can trust that God is who he says he is, and he's faithful in what he says about himself and about me, and walk in obedience by surrendering these things and, man, laying them at the foot of the cross and giving them over to the one who is able to carry them but also forgive the guilt of them. Or you can look at it and then still say, no, I'm going to decide to just keep these things and just hold on to them a little bit longer, or I don't believe that I could ever really let these things go. They're just so integral to just me as a man that they're never going to be fully gone. So I'm not going to even try to let them go. I'm just going to go back to stuffing them back down where they belong, and then act like everything's okay. But I think, what helps guys the most, what helped me the most that weekend was hearing all of these stories that resonated so deeply with me. But beyond that, the next part of the story in each of these men's testimony was what God did with them after all of these things. And so when I got to hear the first part and then decide, well, what am I going to do with this? God gave me such a clear picture in each of these men's lives that they did it the right way. They did what God called them to do and He's calling me to do. And when they did, I got to hear the back half of their story of God's goodness and graciousness in their lives and where they are today. And so the hope that came from that just cascaded towards me and then enabled me to say, okay, then I can too. Because if He's faithful to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys and almost the exact same type of past and struggle,
messy story,
and tragic, awful filth, just like me, then okay, who am I to think that God will not do the same in my life and believe that? And man, that just gives so much, just a shove in the direction that we should take, because you're first of all, I'm not the only one who feels this way. I'm not the only one who's ever had to deal with this or think about these things. But also, I'm not left in the dark about, well, how do I know I'm going to be okay? Yeah. How do I know everything is going to turn out for the best? Oh, because I've just heard story after story of these guys who did it right, and then this is what God did as a result. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I want that. And I believe that God can do it in their life just as much as He can do it in my life. Yeah. So I'm free to choose the right thing.
The testimony, and it talks in Scriptures, right? Yeah. The blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. That's how Satan's defeated. It gives hope. It gives man hope that I too can be restored from my mess. So their mess is just as bad as my mess, right? And then all of a sudden, if there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6 guys, and they're talking about the redemptive, restorative power of Christ, then why can't God do it for me? It's amazing. It's a paradox in a way because, again, with you guys being military, right? It's like victory. What is victory? So how can we have victory by surrendering?
Yeah.
Like, how did victory come through surrender?
Yeah.
And I know your story, my story, and listening to Clayton's story, right, Merrick? It's by surrendering. He's like, God, I can't carry this no more. I surrender to you wholly. And in that moment, victory and freedom, right, tying the whole thing in, victory and freedom comes through surrender. Yeah. Is that about right?
Absolutely. And I remember so many times at Ranger School and just going out into the field during, platoon sticks and platoon ops in the 82nd, how at some point along the way, you're marching forward and you're moving through the wilderness, or you're walking down the road, you're en route to your objective, and someone of you is unable to continue on mission. Mm-hmm. They are injured, they are tired, they are sick, they are just defeated mentally, they're just done with this, and they're no longer able to carry the load that they're required to carry, that was given to them, right? And so it was so beautiful to see how, the whole platoon is not going to succumb to this one person's just defeat, right, of inability to continue mission. Yeah. That's not the option. So the only logical conclusion for the one soldier who cannot keep this up anymore is to surrender the fact that they can't carry this weight, and somebody else needs to do it. And they have to let someone who is stronger than them take their rucksack, take their weapon, take their body armor, and move on. Because we're not stopping, because that's not an option. We're going to continue to move to the objective and continue mission, and you're coming with us, but you have to take responsibility for your own weakness and surrender the fact that you need someone stronger than yourself to take this from you so you can stay with the platoon and so that we can continue being successful. And so when you translate that into our walk with Christ, that's what Jesus came to do, right? How do you steal the goods from a strong man? First, you have to bind the strong man. And who can do that? Only a stronger man who can do that. And then plunder him and give his goods to the many. And Jesus said, I'm the stronger man. Yeah. And so I'm the one who can bind the one that you think is strong and has dominion over you. You just have to be willing to accept that and then surrender. Hey, you got to take this, and I need you to take this. Yeah. And he's faithful and just to shoulder the weight and carry on mission and then not leave you behind, but bring you along with him.
Yeah. Yeah. So that you can be restored, you can recover, have a chance to recover, and then you bring more strength to the squad.
Yeah, now it's just ultimate power of perspectives. I mean, I had the same background. I've never thought about it that way. It's like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. It's very powerful, and I love images. So this image is going to stay with me for a while. Thank you.
And it's just men walking with men. Yeah, and I think in the kingdom and in this thing called life, we're stronger when we walk with other men with like heart, mind, and spirit. So, Clayton, thank you for being on Heart for Excellence, sharing your story and just confession and vulnerability. It's a beautiful thing because
and thank you for proving me wrong, first of all.
Proving Merrick wrong. And that's how we become strong, is walking together in this thing called life. So thank you so much, man.
No, thank you guys. What an honor to be here.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Well, Merrick,
that's